you're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot of
answer?
talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't been
in this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days.
Yes, sir, I've got a question for each of you. First of all, Mr. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks
Isn't
good
that
on
nice?
you.
That's the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's in.
I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed you.
Maybe yours is much better than mine.
Joining us from the US is retired US Navy Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery. It's good to see you, Mark. So first of all, let's just get your reaction to the events of the day so far. And there's been a lot that's been crammed in over the past few hours. The meeting is now just wrapped up and we're waiting for some official word from the White House. But backing things up, it's struck a rather upbeat tone today, don't you think?
Well, it hasn't been the worst day, no. I think, President Trump and President Zelensky had a good meeting, clearly. I mean, I think there's limitations to what they can get done together without having Putin in the room. I really think we knew this after the Putin meeting, that it really needed to be a trilateral discussion. One country invaded the other. You need those two countries in the room if you're going to resolve it most of the time. So the first thing I'd say is, there are limitations on what you can get, but boy, what a good move for the note from Zelensky's spouse to Melania Trump, thanking her for the letter about the Ukrainian children. That's a reminder to the base of the Republican Party that Donald Trump relies on. One of the most egregious offenses of the Ukrainians of the Russians against Ukraine is the theft of the 19,000 plus children.
Yeah, and also, I mean, on a lighter note, Zelensky not wearing the T-shirt today. He's gone the full suit, which was quite a humorous moment, but it just shows how far things have come since February.
No, I agree. And look, he clearly didn't have a throwdown with J.D. Vance. That's good. I think he got along well. Here's the other thing. President Trump, if you watch him, is always on pretty good behavior around Macron and Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
And having both of them in the room. And he really likes Mark Rutte, the head of NATO.
Yeah.
Those three people in the room just really make it harder for Trump to take a negative tone. So I suspect the meeting that occurred after the short press conference with the European leaders was meaningful. Because there are people in that room that President Trump listens to who are delivering that hard message that your reporter just said of, we need a ceasefire first, and we need to bring pressure on Putin if he won't make the concessions we need. And finally, we're going to need security, some kind of security guarantees that probably involve a reassurance force of probably UK and French soldiers.
But not US?
I think the United States, there's things that only we can do inside NATO. It's logistics, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and targeting. Those are three things that NATO simply can't function, or NATO forces that have traditionally belonged to NATO cannot do on their own. So I would be surprised if the United States were not involved in intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, run out of the U.S. Air Force slant NATO headquarters in Ramstein Air Base in Frankfurt, Germany, and then targeting that goes along with that. And then, of course, logistics. No one has a logistical capability like the U.S. Air Mobility Command. And so those are the kind of things that we uniquely do. We don't uniquely provide infantry soldiers. I think that can be done by France and the UK.
Okay. You mentioned that Putin wasn't there, Mark, and you are right. But according to multiple reports now, during that meeting, it was briefly interrupted because Donald Trump reportedly left the talks to phone Vladimir Putin, presumably, to get his thoughts on something that was brought up. So even though he wasn't there physically, he was there kind of indirectly. Are you encouraged about that?
Well, first I thought maybe he called to say, hey, did you see that B-2 I just flew over the Kremlin this afternoon? But probably he called to say, clear something up. My guess is most of what Putin said on Friday was borderline false. And he's getting this whole other version of the facts, which are probably true, from the European team and President Zelensky. And he probably at one point, feeling that he needed to clarify, get clarification or get an understanding, would reach out to Putin. That's the only reason I think he would do that so short circuit.
So do you think there will be a trilateral discussion now, or even four if Emmanuel Macron has his way by saying, well, someone from Europe's got to be involved as well? Do you think that'll happen as a next step?
So I think a multilateral meeting will be next. Look, Putin isn't going to want more than three. He's not going to want three. Putin likes two, and Trump. I think Trump now realizes that will not get a Nobel Peace Prize. So then he's going to get he'll get Zelensky in there. I think the Europeans are right to push for them. It's hard to say who it should be. I don't think it's the European Union in this case, and I think NATO would put, having Mark Rutte there would put Putin in the breakers.
Hey,
you got to figure out who that fourth person is.
No, that's true. Good point, Mark. Sorry to interrupt you there. There's an interesting breaker that's just come from the FT, the Financial Times, that says Ukraine will promise to buy $100 billion of American weapons financed by Europe in a bid to obtain US guarantees for its security after a peace settlement with Russia. So that's one of the first leaks that's come from the meeting today. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's absolutely required. They're going to need, that's $20 billion a year, probably of U.S. equipment. They'll probably buy another, $3 to $5 billion worth of European equipment as it becomes available. We're the U.S. defense industrial base, because of $2 trillion worth of investment over 30 years, is probably the only defense industrial base that can properly resource Ukraine to get back. This is critical because the U.S. Department of Defense is doing some squirrely things, starting to threaten to pull back weapon systems that were promised under Ukraine's Security Assistance Initiative. You get this big investment. Donald Trump's message to the U.S. Department of Defense is going to be, deliver what has been paid for. That's how businessmen work. And the Department of Defense, U.S. Department of Defense, needs to be brought in line with how Donald Trump runs things. And so I like this deal. It's exactly what Trump loves doing in his trade agreements. I think President Zelensky is doing the exact right things, and the Europeans are doing the right thing to back him up.
Well,